If I get this meeting started, I appreciate the members to get lunch and come sit down. Okay, this one is on TBOSS for a short word. It's 2018-52. Let's go around the table, identify ourselves for the record. We'll start with you.
Rebecca with Grayson, municipal attorney.
Francis McLaughlin, planner in the planning department.
Fred?
Dyson. Forrest Dunbar.
Big training.
Christopher Constant. Pete Peterson. Tom Whittle. Eric Scott. Tim Steele.
Is Debbie on the phone? Guess not.
Mr. Chairman, what would you like?
Dean Gates on the phone.
Dean Gates.
Oh, hey, Dean.
Hi, Dean. Wherever.
How?
Dan, just bring a chair up or
Yeah.
something. Never know you to be shy. You normally just put your chair wherever you want it. I find this interesting.
Right up close, eh?
So we've got 2018-52 in front of us. Eric, you've got an amendment on it?
Yeah, do you want to let the
Well, the petitioner start, and then we'll go to you with your amendment. Mr. Coffey, sir.
all right, we trust that you have been provided the latest in our submittals, which we filed with the clerk last
We have
night.
it.
And basically, I'm going to have Paul run through it because he put it together and I reviewed it, and I'd like him to just tell you briefly what is contained in there, and so we can go down that route. And then I'll have a minute or two of
Thank you for hearing us today. I appreciate this opportunity. I just put together a quick, pretty simple presentation for you. My first page is what we've done and what we're doing to kind of obviate some of the concerns the assembly and the neighborhood have had. You all have just become a good operator. So on this first page is kind of detailed the stuff we've done so far. I can read through them real quick if you like. We've secured the non-conforming rights. We've installed full perimeter illumination. Building was quite dark in the past. We put 8 exterior cameras in. So far, we're doing another 16 cameras should be open. We've been putting security doors to all the common spaces, and we put glass doors in the main common space so you can see what's in the hallway before you go in small things. We got rid of the Van Halen paint scheme. They were happy about. We worked on the thing we chose is to have a base for what we want to do in the future as far as trying to address landscaping, really with space, with enough artistic stuff on the outside to really fit and vibe of the neighborhood. Worked diligently with the fire marshal's office, they've been great, we kind of got all their standards. Got a low point of the rear parking lot, we built to improve the drainage. There was a 500 some odd square foot beer garden removed to provide more parking. I contacted a cab company who's got a dedicated taxi stand in front of the building for one cab. So we'll actually have a cab station in the front of the building. Whenever they want, they take our customers or other customers. They were happy because they don't have to stand on that side, but that's the northern lights. That gets the response time just for an hour a little faster. Linda distributed 100 letters to our neighbors, 21 of which showed up at the meeting on the 27th, 14 more letters. We have informal parking agreements with Popeyes and Andy Barbershop. Popeyes is applying for a marijuana dispensary permit. I called Mark up and talked to him. They're not planning on changing their hours. They're going to be closed Sundays and Mondays, and they're going to close at 7 at night when on the days that they are. Discussed landscaping and detailed cook inlet. There's a letter you read before in this package. I reduced the bar footprint by 20%. So it's gone from 334 square feet of bar surface area down to 267. And we moved around. And then I reached out to the Smart Community Council with a memorandum of understanding, which is to address some of their concerns. They don't meet again until next month. Hopefully we can address that at that point in time. Consultant one installed commercial grade bike racks. The art place is developing a spin-out bike rack, kind of steel and new things that put in place. Identifying local charities we want to work with. We're talking to Beacon Hill, the War Vets of Alaska, and AWAC. Installing 50 additional cameras. This working session. Probably pretty large overflow parking sign today, and with therapy bags, to just point people in the right direction. And staff training to educate customers on parking options. The big thing that's happened since we last met, NeighborWorks owned the lot just to the south of us. They were asking $360,000 for it. At the time, that would solve a lot of my problems. spending $360,000 on a parking lot, we're already paying $10 million. It's a wise business decision. I talked to Josh Norton. Jim, over at Neighbor Works, and we had a nice conversation about it. While that was going on, a used car place made an offer on the lot. All of this.
Sorry, is this the one behind you or to the south of you? South of a point?
16,000 square feet. It abuts on our Cook Inlet owns the lot behind us. I've been working with Cook Inlet. I had a lot of property in Mountain View back in the 90s. A lot of work with Cook Inlet in that period of my investing career. Jeff Judd and I are good friends, and that was 2 days ago. Cook Inlet decided to buy that lot because they don't want a used car lot on the ground. This dovetails into our plans. They don't necessarily want to build a lot. It's kind of small. Get a building pencil on that lot right now. It's kind of tough for them. But we met and talked about it's already plumbed for a food truck. Got electricity for lighting. We need a place to store some of their mechanical vehicles at night. So we've got cameras and we've got activity going on. So we're looking at the whole thing, just saying we're probably going to be able to do. They've got a 90-day process and they're going through their due diligence. So we're saying, you know what? Let's get the bar open if we can. Run this thing down. You can see that coming to an agreement with worship budgets. And in the future, they're going to build. Right now, it's going to build 19 units behind us. That may or may not happen because of the funding they're getting. Maybe do another project. But at some point, they might want to build something out that 16,000 square foot lot and the back lot. At that point, I said, hey, let's do a shared access. Let's carve off some parking for us. You can go across the back of my lot. You can have a win-win the whole corner. But that's good news. And sort of a negotiation with owners of Sicilia's Pizza Building. Another one of these tough buildings. These are a lot of and they're very tough folks to deal with. So I feel if they get things going the right direction, I might be able to buy that and take care of some more problems online and get more control over that point. The tenants in there now are good. Get along well with downstairs with Sicily's. We've talked about doing a food agreement. We'll have access to the POS system. We can actually order food for our patrons right directly to their POS. And they come over to the little thing on the bar, number 5, there's a calzone, they walk away, they pay us, real simple. So we're doing that, and the other big thing on the bar as far as parking goes, the building had a large footprint I reduced dramatically, taking a lot of space, turned into private space for my own storage, and little office space for me. So the bar itself, the catering room's gone from, I got the numbers in here, like 500 some odd square feet down to 200 some odd square feet, which is plenty for what we want to do. And there's other cold storage that's no longer used by the bar. The whole footprint is kind of shrunk. That's a little more effort on our part to keep it quiet. There's a page in there with some drawings that I made up to show the actual bar size and what it would do. Storage area for alcohol storage, and the alcohol serving area is strong. There you go. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Steele?
Yeah, everything you're doing is on the right track as far as I'm concerned. There's still a concern. I'm just apprehensive about the past and what you're going to do. And so I encourage you to continue on with what you're doing, and hopefully we'll be ready to do something.
John?
You know, for years, there's lots that goes on houses and stuff.
They own
What are they own it now? What are you buying those? Or what is it? What are they?
cost.
Not the ones like the neighborhood.
The cost, $360,000.
That's for the ones that are on Sonora 37.
Yeah, this was, that's three little lots in a row. They want to keep it
That's
down.
the 360.
279 range of pricing. And I wouldn't mind doing it if I could rationalize it against
That's what, 6,000 square feet?
16,000 square feet.
That's 16 now.
They were 22 square foot starting, and then 16 square feet.
And the problem is, if he bought it before the license is approved, well, then what? If they doesn't get the license approved, so there's both overpriced when they knew we understand they understood that Cook Inlet was very interesting, so the price went up. And secondly, the risk to us, So the better plan for us was to do exactly what Paul just said, which is when they acquire it, since they have no immediate plans to develop according to our discussions with them, that there can be a cross parking agreement or just an allowance, if we even need it. And it works for them, and we get a little resource, a little return on their investment, and it's very good for us because it absolutely ends any question about parking costs, whether from home to park. So that would be really good. And then Paul told you about the diminution in the size of the bar. Well, when he told me that, I said, you mean the actual physical bar inside the building? Yes, that's what he's talking about, from 300 down to 200. The actual diminution in size of the facility, the licensed premises, is down to 2707, and that's what's in here with the old diagram, new diagram, so you can look at the difference between the two and understand we made the footprint of the facility where alcohol is sold substantially smaller, and there's 3 pages in here to help you do that.
Anything else, John? Okay. Next one's Eric, and then Forrest.
So do you have an agreement with Cook Inlet while we're trying to figure out what to do with that property for parking? An understanding?
Right now, understanding, Jeff and I have been friends for years, and we all picture the TBOSS and stuff being done. He's a pretty stand-up guy, and I kind of trust the conversations we have, or that's what he means. So, to answer your question, we have an understanding that this is our Mr. Worksession. Their idea is it's an art method, and I'd love to have a little Corvette show on the weekend, or something on the corner, a food truck, and people walk around, just some lights. So,
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Dunbar, sir.
Yeah, I want to get to Eric's amendment. You are going to talk about.
He wanted to go through this first, then what he said.
But I think it's relevant to what they're saying. I'd love them to be here while we have a discussion. I just, because you brought up Seahawk, Pete and I took a really great tour of Cook Inlet facility yesterday, or the day before, out in Muldoon, where they've done a lot of investment. And the new Title 21, although it moves in the right direction, still requires Seahawk to dramatically overbuild their parking for their senior facilities. Because a lot of their seniors don't have cars and don't drive, but they're still required to build parking spaces in some cases. And they can work with the city a little bit, but there are some requirements. And so I'm curious, has Seahawk talked about, if they were to put in a senior facility there, they might potentially have a lot of excess parking. Have you guys gotten that far down the road in that discussion?
There's one use that are, from I can tell, they built on that space, they might build 8 studio apartments.
Yeah.
And so mixed use down, so they're trying to elevate
Yeah.
that parking underneath the building. They're not going to the senior side, they're going for in the large complex they built on 36th and Spenard. They were surprised by the number of just how fast they rented out to the way
Yep.
projections. It's just all single people that are looking for a place in a secure building.
Right. Okay. Well, that's too bad that sort of doesn't dovetail as nicely as it might with some of the facilities they've built in Muldoon. But to get to Eric's amendment, I want us to have this conversation while we still have these folks here. I don't know if you want to present it, Eric, but my question to you and to Becky is sort of, in reading the amendment, I don't understand, it sounds like you're just kind of restating the law as it is, right? I mean, is it actually imposing any new requirement, or just stating that we can do this, we can already do this, so even if this amendment didn't pass, this is still the case?
I think you can answer that question. We can't record your head moving.
It is effectively simply placing the applicant on notice that this is an issue that has been targeted for this property in the past, and that if the issue comes to the fore again, that is something this body is concerned with, and that you would intend to exercise your powers provided by code to impose additional requirements on the special land use permit, and potentially rescind the special land use permit in the eventuality that you impose conditions they weren't met and things went awry in the future. So I agree, it has no present effect except that it's providing notice that this is an issue of concern to this body.
Now we're going to go to Eric. Eric, you want to do your amendment?
Yeah, I mean, we don't move amendments in work session, right? So we just
No, we can discuss your amendment.
Yeah, so I think that's right, Mr. Dunbar. In some ways, it doesn't do a whole lot. But the discussion at the meeting had been, we have no power over parking because they have a non-conforming letter. And that's where I think the significance of that is. We don't have to fight about it now, and we're in a very unusual situation. Usually, we have a licensee with a specific track record that they have, and we can say, here are the problems we've noticed and what. This, had problems in the past that this owner is trying to address, and we talked about the difference that he's going to do. So we're having a theoretical fight, and we don't yet know whether the problems that occurred before are going to occur again, and we hope they don't. So this is an attempt to say we can do additional. We're not tied to the particular parking code provisions because the special land use on alcohol allows us that. But we don't want to be in a hurry to do it. We want you to have a business that works, and we hope that these things that you've done do work. So it is reserving our power and putting everyone on notice, but we don't have to use it.
Well, can I ask a follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Constant, for allowing me to go. So, not to, start a fight, but we are stating this. They have previously asserted they have a non-conforming right. Do you have a position on that? Do you think that this amendment is legally unenforceable?
Do I think it's legally unenforceable? No, absolutely not. It's enforceable. But here's the situation. When you have something like this that was a problem or created issues in the neighborhood, and then you come along completely unrelated to that, you've got a Sisyphusian task, if you would, to convince people that you aren't them. That's been the past effort for the last 3 months. Talking to people, demonstrating good faith, meeting people, seeking them out, telling them what we're going to do, and agreeing to this, because we don't fear this. We may very well find that we have to deal with it. And then if we have to deal with it, you'll know, and you'll say, hey, and we'll come in and say, here's what we're going to do. And if I've seen anything from my client, is his willingness to reach out. I'm not doing this work. I consult with him, but he does all the work. He goes to the community council. He goes there. He goes there. He doesn't want to pay me to do all that stuff, but he's done it, and he's taken the initiative across the board. And I'll tell you what, over the 40 years I've been doing this, it's rare to find a gentleman who's been so forthright in his efforts to ensure that what he's telling you will happen, and that the people in his neighborhood and his know exactly how it's going to operate. And we expect you to hold us to the promises we've made. Simple.
We've done this before. We've had other liquor licenses. We've given them a year. And then a year, when we reevaluate, if they haven't lived up to what they said they were going to do, we brought the hammer down on them. I remember LED downtown. It was a tremendous problem. And everybody said, can the new user fix it? And obviously they have. We don't have any of near the problems we had with LED before.
And that's the way we do it. And Paul and I have come to know each other. If there's something that comes up, I'm going to be telling him, you got to take care of that. And he's going to be telling me what it is and how he's going to take care of it. And then we'll deal with the neighborhood. And then eventually, if needed, we'll deal with you folks. I hope we don't have to, because if we do, it means something's amiss. But I'm confident you will not have to worry about this, and we don't have any problems with Mr. Croft's proposal. It's a reasonable condition.
I think it's important to recognize that a conditional use or special land use permit rides with the land and not with the operator. And the point of putting on the record that there's an issue in parking is kind of to what Ms. Wynn Pearson said, that it creates a record for the future when we're all gone and someone else is here, and if this question arises again, it doesn't matter if it's the next owner or the next owner. The parking is a concern to the neighborhood, and it's something that the Assembly recognizes. That's a value to people who live in the neighborhood, because they then know that they've been heard and can point to the record that shows it. So this, I think, is very wise in ensuring that the neighborhood has harmony. We'll get on long term.
John?
I just want to comment on something you said about how you're trying to shut the end of the previous operator. For me, I like that source I'm not worried about that, but you said that you expect to have 20 or 30 people there in general. You don't have to park for that, no matter what the previous. You're going to have 30 people is how to question that. So no matter what's happened before, you come up with a challenge.
You mentioned the utility as well. I can sell it in 2 years and sell it to the next operator, not a good operator. My history of the business is 1989 and 1992 last. I bought and held everything. I sold a bunch of property in the early 2000s, cook in, and only big sale in my career. The rest is all
interesting area of the law, right, what we got caught up in is for everything except alcohol and marijuana, it's a compliance issue, right? You have to say, this is my thing, and it's almost a by right. I have this number of parking, or I have a non-conforming right as they do, and so all of that makes sense in the ordinary context of running any other business that is not alcohol and marijuana. We have asserted that we have the right to do special things on alcohol and marijuana because of their, marijuana was a felony not too long ago, and now it's a business. And alcohol has been prohibited in our past, you know. So and they have special concerns. Now, we can't be arbitrary about that. So we're not limited by code, but we are limited by having a factual record, asking reasonable things, having them relate to something that is a legitimate public safety concern. And that's why I wanted to avoid, and I think we can, a theoretical fight. I don't, in some sense, don't have the data yet on what you're going to do. We have some disturbing prior history, but we also have a lot of things that you've done that indicate that might not be what's going to be the future. So I wanted to be clear about our rights that are different than others, that we have the right to do this, but not have to have a theoretical fight that may never occur, I hope doesn't. And certainly if it does, it's much more appropriate to deal with it on what is actually going on than what we are guessing or thinking or worried about might go on. So as long as we did in the memo and in the text say, everybody knows we can do this, and Ms. Wynn Pearson, with her history of property disputes with the city when she was working for businesses, we took a long time discussing. It's just different than alcohol and marijuana. And again, we can't be arbitrary. We have to have a factual basis, which we don't here. But I wanted to be very careful to not lose any of our authority, but not be asserting it in a way that's theoretical.
Any other questions? Yes, Chris.
Yes, actually, a comment on page 3 of your MOU. You speak about encouraged to attend regular community council meetings. I often recommend people come up with a number that's reasonable to you, 6 a year, 8 a year, so that the community can understand what you mean by attend regular community council meetings. You probably don't mean 12 or 11, or maybe you do.
I just started going to the meeting with my good friend Rich and Joe.
Right. So if you do, I recommend you kind of state that so that they can measure it.
I would suggest that you join the council.
Hour and a half.
That gives you heard when issue comes up. Other questions? Anything from the administration, from planning, or from law?
Just because I'm here, you don't have to have a seat. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Oh, yes, ma'am.
This is on Tuesdays, Monday.
Yes, it is.
We have a community council here.
But we have time to hear from the public now. Normally we don't, but we have time. So more than happy. Anybody from the community council want to talk to us?
Yeah, hi. Jay Skanes, current chair of our community council. I'm here with Tom McGrath, long-standing member. Hi, Paul. Some members. We recognize in the neighborhood that in the past the operator at this location has caused problems. We've had cars parked on sidewalks. We've had noise complaints, and there's a pretty solid record from the community. And I understand this is a new operator, and I also understand the special and permanent conditions that we're talking about today. And in general, I want to just make sure the Assembly understands that we have had a number of good faith conversations with Mr. Berger and Mr. Coffey on this issue, and we would like to make sure that in the future, going forward, we do have some very specific expectations that we're going to try to work on that and understanding with Paul. And one of the concerns is regarding parking. Mr. Weddleton's question, I think, does not go beyond me in terms of his point, 20 to 30 spaces. I think that right now for 2,707 square feet, you guys need 28 spaces. 33 with the upstairs, with the residential upstairs. So that's a tight condition. And how would we measure promises from Cook Inlet Housing about agreements that aren't spelled out in writing? It's hard for us to know, but take you on your word that you're going to try and work it out. And faith as well, and, you know, like I said, our number one concern is gonna be parking going forward in noise complaints. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to consider it today, and we will at our next meeting, attempt to work out a memorandum of understanding with Mr. Berger.
I want everybody to keep in mind this is being recorded. So it's not just idle chat, we record this and store it. So promise you make here, both sides, will be recorded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Chris?
I'm not suggesting this or proposing an amendment, but isn't it feasible that a condition be added that a letter come from Cook Inlet before the protest is lifted? You know,
Before the what's
the
lifted?
protest is lifted, you know, where it's all conditioned out and everyone agrees, and the last piece is just give us a letter that says they're gonna play.
The problem there is they don't own the property yet. You know, and that's 90 days away, so you could say, well, if we get it, and who knows, maybe they find it's polluted. I mean, I have no clue the things that can come between us and that place. So it's one of those things that, you know, we've got, you know, we don't know. But it's my experience here with this gentleman and with over time with McKinley is they don't waste their time on things that they don't have a probability of success. What's the point? Why string Paul along and pretend you're going to do something and not do it? Why should he say he'd like to do it and then not? It's a great benefit to him if it happens. It's obviously a great benefit to the community because then there's nobody parking on the other side of the street. So it's in our best interest to do everything we can. And if Cook Inlet has told us, as they have told us, that they don't intend present development, then it's an ideal thing for them because there's revenue or there's opportunity for beneficial uses and who knows what. You know, I think we'll get somewhere with it, but I can't promise it today. And if you make it a condition, then, you know, I think that's a little, I don't think you should do that.
Yes, planning.
Hi, thanks for calling me. So, you know, Mr. Berger, his representative, been a delight to work with, and this is a proposed commercial use in a shuttered, you know, building on a commercial corridor, and they may end up being a very nice neighbor and addition to the neighborhood. I mean, we've been discussing about all the worst case scenarios, and it may end up being a really positive thing too.
Tim?
I would much rather see a good operator like I think we have here and activity in the area. And Cook Inlet has been great, and I have talked to Cook Inlet also. And everybody's willing to cooperate and do good things. And so I'm positive it's not without risk on anybody's part. But growth and movement forward is a good thing. So I'm glad we have inserted the language that was that maybe inserted, and but I have confidence that the folks are care about the community, care about
Any other questions or comments? It's just, go ahead, Forrest.
I would just say, based on Mr. Coffey's comments, I see this task less as a boulder that needs to be pushed up the hill for all eternity that rolls back down, and more like stables that need to be cleaned.
Like historian.
Sisyphean historian. They cleaned up after elephants go through. Yeah, they cleaned up a mess. But over the years, we've seen a lot of these come through where there's been a bad operator, we've got a good operator in there, and the place cleans up. We can't hold individual responsible for what happened in the past, because we all have past things you're really not dealing with. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to add on the licensing portion of the assembly. If they find there's problems with the noise and other issues that the community council has, you have the opportunity before January to bring the license back and request conditions of the ABC board. So you have that option also.
Thank you, Mandy.
That's a statutory right.
We've done that
You should all
before to
know.
individuals, I know.
Mhm.
Any other questions? If not, this means our rep will